Shocking reveal. The flaws in Mark Carney's plan for Canada, reactions and analysis. Canada's political landscape has shifted dramatically with Mark Carney's election as Prime Minister in April 2025. Promising economic revitalization, stronger trade ties, and a more assertive national identity, his administration introduced ambitious reforms. While bold, these policies raise concerns about long-term economic stability, social impacts, and political feasibility. Citizens, experts, and business leaders are closely watching whether his vision can deliver lasting benefits without destabilizing key sectors of the economy. One of Carney's most controversial moves was eliminating the federal consumer carbon tax in April 2025. While framed as relief for Canadians struggling with high costs, critics argue it undermines Canada's climate commitments and threatens long-term environmental sustainability. Economists warn that sudden policy reversals create uncertainty, discourage investment, and weaken Canada's credibility in global climate negotiations, raising serious questions about balancing short-term relief with sustainable long-term growth. Carney's administration has also introduced tax cuts, including lowering the bottom marginal income tax rate from 15% to 14% and temporarily removing the GST for first-time home buyers. These measures aim to stimulate economic activity, but risk increasing the federal deficit and reducing funding for essential public services like healthcare and education. The postponed federal budget, scheduled for November 2025, is expected to show larger deficits, highlighting concerns that aggressive fiscal policies without clear long-term planning may undermine economic stability. Trade tensions with the United States under President Trump have intensified economic pressure on Canada. U.S. tariffs contributed to a 27% decline in exports in the second quarter of 2025, while business investment fell to a four-decade low. Industries that rely heavily on exports are particularly vulnerable, highlighting how domestic policies alone cannot secure economic growth. Analysts warn that Canada must carefully navigate global trade volatility and international relations to prevent further financial and industrial disruption. Carney has sought to diversify trade relationships, exemplified by his visit to Mexico ahead of the 2026 USMCA review. While diversification is a positive step, experts caution that it cannot immediately offset the economic damage caused by U.S. tariffs. Businesses reliant on exports remain exposed, and benefits from new trade partnerships are likely to take years to materialize. Critics argue that without additional domestic support for affected industries, Canadian workers and companies may continue to face operational and financial challenges. The Canadian labor market is under strain, with unemployment reaching a 9-year high outside pandemic-related fluctuations. The Bank of Canada's interest rate cut to 2.5% is designed to encourage investment and economic activity, but monetary policy alone is unlikely to resolve structural employment issues. Comprehensive strategies for job creation, workforce retraining, and skill development are essential. Without these measures, short-term relief may fail to provide meaningful employment opportunities for Canadians navigating economic uncertainty. Housing affordability remains a pressing issue, particularly for middle-class families and first-time buyers. Carney's Build Canada Homes initiative seeks to construct affordable housing projects, but critics argue it may not address systemic problems like speculative investment, zoning restrictions, and limited supply. Broader reforms, including collaboration with private developers and regulatory adjustments, are needed to stabilize the housing market and ensure that Canadians can access long-term, sustainable housing solutions without facing ongoing financial strain. Carney's immigration policies have been adjusted, reducing planned permanent resident admissions from approximately 500,000 to 395,000 in 2025. While intended to manage population growth and resources, critics warn these reductions could exacerbate labor shortages and slow economic growth. Skilled workers and essential labor are vital for key industries, and limiting immigration could hinder innovation, productivity, and Canada's competitiveness. Balancing population management with economic needs remains a core challenge for policymakers. Public opinion on Carney's policies is mixed. While some Canadians welcome tax relief and economic stimulus measures, others express concern about long-term deficits and social impacts. Initiatives like increased funding for public media and stricter gun control measures have received limited support, indicating a potential disconnect between government priorities and citizen expectations. To maintain credibility, Carney's administration must demonstrate that policies balance immediate relief with sustainable, widely supported solutions. Carney's minority government faces challenges passing legislation without opposition support. Cooperation with the NDP has been effective in some cases, but the current political climate requires broader negotiation and compromise. Analysts note that the successful implementation of his ambitious agenda depends on building consensus across parties. Failure to do so could stall reforms, create policy uncertainty, and weaken public confidence in the government's ability to manage economic and social priorities effectively. On foreign policy, Carney has pledged to meet NATO defense spending targets, aiming for 2% of GDP by 2026 and 5% by 2035. While this strengthens Canada's global position, critics caution that high defense expenditures could divert funds from healthcare, education, and social programs. Maintaining balance between international commitments and domestic priorities is critical, as overspending abroad may strain the federal budget and impact citizens' access to essential services, forcing difficult trade-offs between global obligations and local needs. Environmental policies under Carney have shifted with the removal of the carbon tax. Government officials claim alternative measures will maintain progress on climate goals, but environmental groups remain skeptical. Sudden policy changes risk undermining Canada's ability to meet international commitments and may have long-term ecological consequences. Experts stress that clear, transparent, and consistent strategies are necessary to maintain credibility, support sustainable development, and reconcile economic priorities with pressing environmental responsibilities. Mark Carney's vision for Canada is ambitious, combining economic reform with national revitalization. Yet implementation reveals significant flaws, including fiscal strain, social risks, and environmental uncertainty. Balancing immediate relief with long-term stability, addressing housing, labor, immigration, trade, and climate issues, and navigating complex political negotiations are critical. Canada now faces a pivotal moment where these policy decisions will shape prosperity, inclusion, and stability for decades to come.